Hello there, you beautiful people. My name is Willow, and welcome back to Supreme Commander Forged Alliance Forever for one of the highest level games I have ever casted. It is indeed one of the games played in the Legend of the Stars World Championship series that we just concluded last weekend. And of course, I'm recording this on Christmas Day, so Merry Christmas to you and yours from me to you. You all are beautiful. It's gonna be a little bit late. I wanted to stream on Christmas Day, but our internet's out, so I'm just gonna sit down and record a bunch of games for you all, and when the internet goes back up, we're gonna have so many games every day for a few days. And of course, let's go ahead and get into player introductions on this map gen. In the north, going purple, we have a Cybran, the former multi-time world champion of FAF. His name is Nexus, and he is here on the warpath trying to make his way into the finals to go up against presumably Tagada. That is how the ladder was supposed to shake out. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but you can always go check the tournament VODs on the FAF Live Twitch channel. And then down to the southeast, we have ourselves a Cyan UEF going first land, the Russian man himself. And very happy to be here in the top 8. It is none other than Dingy the Chainsaw, otherwise known as Espy or Esperanto or Pepsi. He's had a lot of nicknames, but we're going to go with Dingy for this cast, since that's the name appearing right here on screen for you. And let's go ahead and get you some juicy views of these build orders. I'm sure somebody's already going to be pissed. You didn't show the whole build order. You can infer, and we'll get rid of the mini-map momentarily. And you can just see how these players are getting on with their build orders. They have engineers going out, expanding in every which direction, and here in a second we'll look at the map. But of course, before we do that, I would like to remind you to go down below, hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel oh so much, and maybe if you enjoy this, hit the like button, and if you're feeling super generous, leave a comment to feed the hungry algorithm. So we do see a bit of a divergence here. We have a very early second land factory coming out from Dingy, and in fact he cancels it. I think maybe he meant to go for air before that. This is a very large map. It is a 20 by 20 kilometer, so these players are really going to want to prioritize getting air out very early. A transport's going to be necessary. I think we've shown enough of the early build orders. We can take a look at the map. So we have a very beautiful map gen today. We have a lot of water, but the water is really cut off. It's kind of a set-in situation where you have two different ponds, and we have these large islands that these players are going to contest. I'm expecting to see transport drops and contestation on both of them. Also an island here in the middle with just a couple of mexes, most likely going to turn into a no man's land situation, as one player will get one C and the other player will get the other C. If we see both C's taken by one player, well, that player is just going to be in an absolutely oppressive position where he will be able to just dominate the other. But I don't think we're going to see that here. We have two players who know what they're doing. They know their stuff. Let's go ahead and make sure we turn the mini-map back on for you all to see all the juicy details happening here on the mini-map. In fact, let's just go ahead and let's size it appropriately for this map. There we go. Make it look all nice and clean. And we have scouts coming out from both players. Two scouts passing in the night, but unfortunately for both of them, they're going to be locked onto by interceptors, and both will go down. Neither side going to get any real intel on the other, and we can see that panning out here. The straight scout across the map just immediately denied. Very high level play, and we already have Dingy showing up with a second scout to try and throw it over here to the southern side of the map, maybe come up north later. We also have a bomber out from both sides, but there's critically more interceptors out onto the field for Nexus, and it does look as though he's going to take out the only remaining interceptor that's been built up for Dingy. Dingy has now replaced that interceptor with another transport already out now for Nexus. No transport even started yet. No, a transport has been finished. Sorry, I just couldn't see it. A lot of icons in that area. So both sides have their transports. Let's see if they go to the same island or different islands. We do have the western approach out from Dingy. He's heading to the west, and Nexus is in fact going to head to the south. So these two players going to be going for the same island in the beginning. We also have a couple of bombers sitting around here trying to catch out any naughty transports that may try and take over some of this area. And we have mexes being grabbed up by both sides. Dingy doing a little bit better on reclaim, but overall they've managed to kill just as much as they have lost. They're both at 1.0 K to D ratio. We also have a little bit of a mass advantage now appearing for Nexus. It seems that his build order was a little bit more clean in getting out to grab those exterior mexes. We also see a transport over here for Nexus almost going down. More interceptors on the way. He's gonna need to get it to land, and he is going to need to get it dropping immediately as those interceptors are coming in. There's not a lot of HP on this transport. If this goes down, it is a complete and utter disaster. In comes, it goes down. Do any of the engineers survive? No, they do not. And oh no, it's a disaster for Nexus as he is unable to secure himself an expansion onto one of these islands. Meanwhile, Dingy getting all 6 engineers out of that transport and onto land. We do have a bomber out from Nexus. Will the interceptors be able to show up in time, or will both players be completely denied an expansion over here? Well, unfortunately for Nexus, SB has already managed to get himself up a factory, and he still has 4 engineers even after the bomber goes down. And that means that this island almost assuredly going to be handed over to Dingy for free. And on the other side, we have a transport already out making its way to this northern island. Nexus has to fight for this with everything he has, and he has to make sure he does not lose that transport. He does have all of these interceptors starting to converge on that transport's location. That transport is now in trouble. Dingy playing a blinder of the game with the early air, and all of those interceptors, they're slowly closing in. They're like sharks when there's blood in the water, and in comes the transport of Nexus. First interceptor has locked on. Second interceptor gonna be locked on as well. Will he be able to get the drop off? He does get the drop off. He does an emergency drop. The transport will go down, but of course Nexus will get his units onto land, be able to start building up those factories. Needs to make sure he spreads out his engineers though. As a T1 bomber is coming in, he is spreading the engineers, but how many are going to die to this first bomb? It does seem as though only 1, maybe 2 go down to that bomber, but it goes down as well. And now we're going to have a fight on this northern island between Dingy and Nexus. They're going to have a land battle on a Navy map. Here in the middle, we also have a couple of engineers dropped off by Dingy. He wants to set up these 2 mexes and maybe even do a little bit of a cheeky play. Maybe he can get T2 set up over here and get a tactical missile launcher to threaten inwards towards the main base of Nexus, all to come in the near future. But right now, Nexus has really reacted to this lack of air control he found himself with and has just so many interceptors out onto the field. He is already up to 3 air factories, one of which being T2. Meanwhile, on the other side, we're still sitting on 1 air factory. It's heavily assisted, but it's going T2, and he just doesn't have the interceptor count to really deal with the overwhelming air presence coming out from Nexus. Nexus now getting up bombers. There's nothing to stop the bombers. There's no antis. So these bombers just have carte blanche to just deal as much damage as possible. His own NGs, of which he has more, are already building up a bunch of base infrastructure on this island, and on top of that, these 2 factories, they're forced to build tanks because they know they have to fight a land battle, and almost assuredly we're gonna have the map split evenly along this horizontal axis now with those developments over on that northeast island. On the southwest island, we do see Dingy continuing to expand, continuing to get himself set up here. He's gonna be very happy to have those extra mass extractors a little bit earlier than Nexus, and we can see that really panning out here in the mass bars, as right now Nexus is just behind, and it's because he didn't get as many of these T1 mexes. Those T1 mexes are really funding some upgrades back at the base of Dingy, who is currently building up his T2 Pigeon. Maybe he's going to go for some harass. Maybe we're going to see some heavy Janus usage. We've seen that in other parts of the tournament, particularly in the group stage where we saw a large group of Janus out from Grimplex really just destroy Shin. So gonna have to see exactly how these players manage the air game, because that's the most important part right now. We also had a naval factory or 2 go up over here for Dingy, and he's already getting out some frigates. We don't have anything similar for Nexus. There is a small bit of passable water right here, but you're not going to be getting battleships through that. and those units are going to need to be very alert for Dingy. Would love to see him just try and go around and deny any possible factories and stop Nexus from getting into the water. Also, a drop over here of mech marines. It seems as though there was maybe a ghetto gunship or just a straight up drop. Gonna be able to kill off 4 mexes of Nexus. Nexus not feeling too good in this early game. I think it's fair to say that Dingy has done more than good on this early game, with the micro of the air to the overall aggression and just denying one of those islands from Nexus. Nexus having a bit of a struggle here, but of course it's still early on and there's plenty of time, especially on a map like this, for these players to catch up economically, to make things happen. There's a lot of area for both these players to cover. A lot of these harassment options like dropping these mech marines will become available to these players very soon. And there's also, of course, these renegade gunships coming out. They can very easily dispatch mech marines, and I think Nexus should have radar signatures over at least some of these and be able to deal with this. Does drop a few engineers over here. Going to get up that reclaim, going to rebuild those mexes. He's going to be on top of that, as you would expect out of a former world champion of FAF. But really, I would say he is on the back foot in this game, but that's not what Nexus is known for. Nexus is known for his incredibly strong mid to late game decision making and eco prowess. So gonna have to see what this game shapes out to be. Can Dingy keep up with the world champion, or will he fall to the wayside? As down to the south, we now have Renegades coming out from Nexus, who is going to start using these as raiding units. I really love to see this. There's a bunch of Janus now coming out from Dingy, and critically, they can be used very, very effectively as fighters. They have a lot of HP, they do a lot of damage, but that's not their main purpose. I would love to see some interceptors coming out to try and screen for these Renegades. They're only going to get 3 T1 mexes at this rate with all of these Janus coming in. A scout flies over, sees all of those Januses. Does Nexus react with his Air Force? He does indeed start sending it out. Is he going to keep going for interceptors? Yes, he is building interceptors out of that T2 factory with heavy assistance. So now the Janus come in, and you're going to see the Janus, they do pretty well in these fights against other air units. They're not horrible. The biggest drawback is their turning radius is so small, and that's why they're going to have a lot of struggles dealing with these interceptors, but they are faster, so they can run away relatively effectively. They're going to turn around, they're going to take the air fight, but I just don't know if it's really going to matter. All of these interceptors coming out from Nexus going to be able to fire freely into these Janus. The Janus are going to take some with them, but I think this is a bit of a losing battle, and especially since the interceptors are so much easier to replace. Sure, he lost this battle right here, but he's going to have an entire Air Force very quickly. Each Janus you lose takes a lot longer to replace for Dingy, but Dingy definitely getting a huge amount of good trades over here, and maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe the Janus is just a really good fighter. And for now, it would seem as though Dingy has managed to gain and maintain air control yet again. Over here to the east, though, we have mass drops coming out from Nexus. He does lose it to the Janus, which are really adept at this bombing game that they're doing right now. And he is going to be able to kill off a few of these mexes, some of which even, I think, were going to T2, or maybe this one was T2. No, it wasn't. But going to be able to get a little bit of control over here. Janus is coming in. They're going to be able to kill off a lot of this. Another mech's going to go down, it would seem. No, down to 16 HP. That's unfortunate. And the Janus is going to chase off those transports. And the interceptor cloud for Nexus, it is growing in size, but needs to make sure that he's being careful. He needs to rebuild this Air Force. Gonna have to cede some territory due to these Janus, and the Janus very good at dealing with these raiding drop attacks, as they just have so much AoE damage, really creating an inferno of death and destruction for the opposition. And in comes the Janus. Unfortunately, this T2 radar, not very long for this world. In comes the firebombs, and down goes the radar along with all of the engineers near it. And with all of these Janus in the area, it looks as though Dingy's gonna go for the jugular. It looks as though he wants to get the kill. AA going up for Nexus. In come all the Janus. Is he just going for that power grid? Another shield being spammed up as fast as possible. The Pigeons, they're gonna start going down rapidly. The Janus, they're gonna pay for it with their lives, but they got 2 of the T2 Pigeons, and that's gonna take a little while for Nexus to replace. Most of the Janus go down, meaning that air control yet again gonna be thrown into the hands of Nexus. But now a drop over here to the west of a bunch of strikers. Gonna be a problem for Nexus to deal with. He is on a stronger economy despite all of this, has really managed to eco up and eco scale a little bit better than his opponent, who is throwing a lot of mass into these Janus bombers. But he's now going to have some power struggles, needs to rebuild that T2 Pigeon, needs to get himself reestablished, and now also has to come up with a solution to all of these strikers that were just dropped on his shore. Would love to see some Renegades maybe come out to deal with that. Have some Corsairs on the way. T3 Air also on the way. Gonna have to pause that upgrade. There's no way he can afford that on his current power. Yeah, I think he's eventually gonna stall unless he gets this T2 Pigeon up. Once that's up, he should be fine. And in the middle of the map, we're seeing a lot of frigates now coming out from Dingy. We do have our first naval factory for Nexus, but he's just woefully behind on Navy. And Dingy, despite being a little bit lower on economy right now, just looks like he's running away with the game. He's getting wins across the map, making aggressive plays. The only thing you could maybe say is that he's left a lot of reclaim. But a lot of that reclaim are units that Nexus built himself. Gonna have to see exactly how this goes. We now have Corsairs that are gonna start amassing up for Nexus. And Dingy over here to the northeast, playing very aggressively. All of these transports coming over here and making a very beautiful and mesmerizing pattern, but not much else. Radar thrown up. And the naval production over here, gonna want to get more of it. As, of course, the UEF player is gonna want to go to T2 Navy and start getting out those Governor-class cruisers. Another drop over here. This one has engineers. Nexus really under threat of just being in a catch-22 situation of fighting on land, losing on Navy, having to deal with so much. Dingy's aggression really paying out in dividends right now as Renegades come out onto the map to help deal with all of this. A few Corsairs now making their way down south, going to try and get some damage back down on towards Dingy, but he's just going to be getting some T1 mexes. T1 mexes are great to kill and all, but you need to kill a little bit more than that, I feel. Your opponent's getting some real damage now with a bunch of dropped T1 mobile artillery getting dropped off next to all these T2 mexes in the back. You expect to see a lot of damage coming in towards Nexus's economy in the next couple of minutes, but Nexus has managed to get to T3 Air. He's getting that power generator up. On the other side of the map, T3 Air has finished. He's not quite got his T3 power generator as far along as Nexus does. Control K's all these T1 Pigeons. Is going to be able to reclaim all of that up. And with this, we see these T2 mass extractors going down in the northern corner for Nexus, and now he is brought down below the economy of Dingy. That was the one thing going in his favor. He still, as I said, has all of that reclaim from over here, and he's scooping it up relatively effectively. But it's dangerous to be in this situation for Nexus. Needs to maintain control over his main island. Needs to stop these transports from coming in with carte blanche just to damage him. Needs to get something happening on the other side of the map, if we're being honest. Because right now everything's happening on his side of the map, and that's a little bit dangerous if you can't stabilize from it. And now Nexus building himself up a air force of ASF, but he's somehow behind Dingy. Even though he got his T3 Pigeon a little bit earlier, he's behind Dingy on overall ASF production. I guess he's having to build Renegades and Bombers to deal with all these drops. Meanwhile, over here to the east, we have some engineers reclaiming with a point defense, trying to get a lot of value out of these engineers. And Nexus has managed to re-expand to these lost mexes relatively quickly, but needs to make sure that he is re-upgrading the ones he lost. Has got some upgraded ones over here, which is a dangerous proposition. And now we have a bit of a naval battle kicking off, but Nexus really doesn't want this naval battle. He's kind of pointing hey, my naval production's over here. He has some air units to help out, but definitely needs more naval production, and he agrees, building up another factory right now. But he's woefully behind in frigate count. And the ASF numbers, they're starting to equalize a little bit, both sides having about the same number. Corsairs coming out, gonna just get as much damage as they can before they go down. And over here to the north, we have these mechs being rebuilt. This mech's for some reason forgotten. Yeah, Nexus will get around to it eventually, I'm sure. Yeah, he's gonna build it now. This mech's over here to the west getting rebuilt. And Nexus has managed to recover from the damage done by Dingy, but Dingy's damage really got him in a position where he can catch up economically, and now he's ahead economically on 117 mass, Master Chief mass. And we're looking at a very, very long and drawn-out game now. This game was either going to be decided in the first 20 minutes, or it's going to take a lot longer to finish off. As now Dingy sitting in the driver's seat of this game. He's controlling the tempo. He's controlling how the match is going so far, but he is by no means in a position where he has won it. He's gonna need to deal with this Navy up here, but the frigate numbers are relatively equal, and the Trident is a little bit better than that Thunderhead class. So these Tridents, as long as they stick together, as long as they focus fire, should be alright. Needs to make sure he's not running away too much, as the Trident cannot fire backwards. Needs to stop at some point and try and hold his ground. A torpedo launcher, or a few, gonna be going up now for Nexus. He's decided he needs to make sure he holds on to that naval production. As Corsairs come out to try and deal damage onto those frigates, missing a lot of those missiles. And now an air fight gonna kick off between Nexus and Dingy. Who's gonna win it? If Dingy wins this, it'll be huge for him, but he took the air fight and then he loses it. Not a abject failure out from him, but a scary situation. Goes in thinking maybe he had the numbers, but really just trades somewhat evenly. But that's not what you want to do when you're taking the aggressive attack. You want to be winning that, because you're dropping mass just above your opponent, and at this level of play, these players even get into reclaim fields when they're caused by ASFs dying. Speaking of reclaim, both players past the 20,000 mark. Dingy nearing 30,000. Nexus a little bit behind him. And now over here to the north, it seems that Dingy snuck in a base over here against Nexus. Nexus is now building up more land factories. He's going to have to deal with this. Does have the Corsairs and Renegades that he's built up. Can send those in at any time, but has to worry about the air engagement that is destined to come if he does so. And Dingy still just trying to be all over the map, trying to pull Nexus apart to tax the man's APM. He seems to be managing it just fine so far. Make sure to hydrate, everybody, as we have another bit of an engagement going on. We have frigates coming out from both sides. Gonna be able to fight it out. And in comes all of the Renegades. After I hydrated, they're gonna really turn this fight, but it's still a dangerous position for Nexus, because he's just not able, he's never gonna be able to push out of this corner if this keeps happening and he doesn't have a good solution. He needs to wipe this frigate force off of the map. Meanwhile, over here to the east, we have all of these Mantis and Strikers fighting it out. It's going to be a protracted land battle over here unless somebody gets involved in the air. T1 bombers now coming out, going to try and kill off some of those backline units, such as these Lobos. But it does seem as though a heavy focus coming out from both players, both sides wanting to build up a ton of land factories with which to cudgel the other's production. And Dingy aggressively defending this attack with his ASF. He wants that second island. He wants total map control. He wants to force Nexus into a corner. Nexus not really having it, though. Still going to continue to produce a lot of units here. Nexus yet again taking the economic lead here, despite Dingy just having a little bit less of having a lot less harassment going on, if we're honest. And SP going to need to be very careful about how he handles this. It's going to be a lot of mass just jumped on the doorstep of Nexus. Nexus still behind on reclaim, so that all of these fights on his side of the map not really bearing fruit of reclaim fields, but I'm sure it'll begin to happen. Already has an engineer up here that's reclaiming, already getting into this field, and this field alone is looking to be 2,000 mass. We have all these factories. It's going to be 3,000-4,000 mass by the time we're done with the fighting. And as long as Dingy continues to throw units out right here, there's going to be more reclaim. Land factory reclaimed by an engineer. Dingy definitely behind on the land units over here. Overall reclaim on the main island of Nexus is also quite substantial, 4,000 for him to pick up. Meanwhile, Dingy down to only about 600 on basically his entire half of the map, has only about 800. So a lot more reclaim up here on this northern side, and Nexus is starting to gain control, has managed to get up enough frigates to really contest Navy. Oh, sorry about that. That sneeze crept up on me. Hopefully I can remember to go in audio editing and make that a lot less loud, because I'm sure it was very loud. And Nexus, slowly but surely, dismantling this proxy base built up by Dingy. And Dingy has yet another failed attempt at knocking Nexus off of some of his territory. These land battles just haven't been going his way. As we see T1 bombers being stockpiled, I think on both sides. A strat bomber out for Dingy. Is he going to start stockpiling them, or are these going to be used specifically for killing off mexes? Or maybe go for some other infrastructure? Is going to send it around to the north. No T2 Navy out from either side. Oh no, T2 Navy has finished up for Dingy. And he in fact has a destroyer over here, which is going to start killing off T2 mexes. And oh no, Nexus, you're in a dangerous position now. This island is yours. You're not losing it anytime soon, but you're not going to be able to have the mass extractors either. And that just feels really bad for the Purple Cybran. Another reminder to hit that subscribe button, you all. Keep on pumping up those YouTube numbers. And thank you for all of your support. It's been awesome. I've loved to see the channel growth. If you want to see a bunch of cool people and play FAF during US times, if you're a United States player, you're in the North American time zones, come check out my server. The Discord server is linked in the description of every video. We have a lot of people playing during NA times, and I know it's a little bit harder to find games for some of us NA players, especially a little bit later at night. So we're trying to encourage that there, and consider joining it. And that's also where you can submit your own replays for me to cast. We now have a wave of torpedo bombers coming out from Nexus. He really wants to get some damage down onto this Navy, and definitely wants to stop this governor from causing him so many issues. The ASF out from Dingy are going to respond, but not in time, as that governor is going to meet the cruel, cruel fate that the bottom of the sea has for it. Down goes that governor. Oh, yeah. Okay, I was about to say, oh, did he manage to stop it? But he didn't. And, of course, did manage to get that last couple of missiles out, but does save a T2 Mex Nexus there. And overall, I think the big thing is that there's a strat bomber out over here on the back side of the base. Does Nexus notice? Why isn't Nexus responding? He's lost 4 T2 mexes. He has a 5th about to go down. Is he not hearing the strat bomber sound effect? He finally sees it, but not before another T2 mex is going to go down, and there might be another to follow. It drops yet another bomb, and that's going to be 6 T2 Mex is going down for Nexus, which will knock him below the economic prowess of Dingy, who is just playing a very good game. Nexus isn't allowed to keep his mexes anywhere on the map other than his main base. Nexus building up a very pretty air grid. And so is Dingy, but I would say Dingy is a little bit behind on air grid development. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th air factory going up for Nexus. Meanwhile, we only see about 6 in total for Dingy. Of course, an air grid is only as good as your ability to afford it. And Nexus is able to afford whatever he's running, but I'm sure a lot of these factories aren't building anything. At least momentarily. Yeah, he's going to be in a bit of a mass stall. Needs to rebuild all of those mexes for the umpteenth time, it would seem. Some torpedo bombers coming in. Nexus going for a bit of an air fight here. Going to try and chase off the ASF of Dingy and continue to try and use air to give himself an advantage, but right now it just feels like he has the overall naval advantage, just has a ton of frigates, and now is starting to get out Barracudas. There is a Valiant here, but the Valiant arguably the worst at dealing with Barracudas out of the 4 destroyers available. And over here to the west, we have Governor trying to get more economic damage. Dingy just constantly going after these vulnerable T2 mexes. And honestly, Nexus is running out of T3 safe T3 mexes to build. He needs to start giving himself some security on this map. Needs to start preventing some of this damage. Get a little bit more protection. Just like everybody's always saying, you need to use protection if you don't want to get hurt or pay child support, you know. Use protection. Safe sex, everybody. Oh, man. Over here to the north, Dingy making his way into a bit of a naval fight. Nexus not really microing that well. He's just allowing Dingy to get a free attack move off. Nexus does eventually realize this and walks away. Meanwhile, over here to the east, we now see Nexus going for a scalp. He's going to try and kill off the HQ of Dingy. Get rid of that naval HQ. Get rid of these governors. Cut the problem off at the source. I really like the play. And down goes that naval HQ, especially if he kills off all of the engineers here too. Just shift G's them really quick. That could be huge because it will stop him from having all of this engineer build power right here in the water to just immediately build up more T2 HQs. And that's going to definitely stifle Dingy's naval aspirations. Meanwhile, on the northern side, Nexus building his naval factories in a much more secure location means that he's in a better position to deal with all of this. A few ASF come out and try and deal with those Corsairs, but the ASF out from Nexus going to be able to deal with those. And the Corsairs turn around. I think they're going to come back, maybe try and kill off these T2 mexes on this island. A T2 mex is a T2 mex, so I don't think he cares where he kills them. Killing them on the main island may be a little bit better, but killing them here is just as valuable for the economic damage. And overall air forces definitely seems as though Nexus has an advantage. And now a huge naval engagement about to pop off. Nexus feeling strong. Nexus feeling like he can push away Dingy and lock him out of this northern sea. The canals gonna be a very dangerous choke point, but there are a few destroyers here to deal with the surface fleet. The Barracuda is gonna have to focus down those destroyers as best they can. But the surface fleet is very strong for Nexus as well if those frigates can get in a range. And it seems as though Dingy just wants to withdraw from this area, doesn't want to get locked into a fight he doesn't want to take. Remember to hydrate, take a drink of water every now and then, everybody. And we have the two air forces getting dangerously close, flirting with the idea of murdering each other. I don't think Dingy knows just how close he is to danger. A second ago he did, but now he can't see the ASF. There's the ASF cloud again. He's trying to play it cautiously. These Valiants just sitting in this choke point and firing at any stray frigates. And this island has taken quite a bit of damage. Corsairs coming in, killing off the next T2HQ. Dingy just cannot get a break. There's no more cruisers for you, no more governors. As these Corsairs come in with a vengeful anger. Tired of seeing their infrastructure go down to silly things such as that. Nexus seemingly forgetting that he has a mechs back here. I hope he does realize that at some point, because that's going to be one of those mechs he wants to upgrade in the future. We have a strat bomber sitting off to the northeast corner, and a huge air fight taking place. Almost missed it. Nexus keeping his ASF a little bit more grouped up. Dingy going for the bit more spread out method. Who's going to win it? It's going to be close. Both sides hemorrhaging ASF, but in the end, Dingy comes out on top. And that's going to be a huge blow over to Nexus. He has to now focus everything on regaining that air control. He's been using it to really bring himself back into this game. And he's also going for a huge naval engagement over here, using these Barracudas. The UEF Navy just kind of weak against submarine targets. Need those Coopers to deal with it, and there's just not near... He can't build Coopers. He doesn't have any HQs. So for now, these Barracudas are going to have carte blanche, especially once they kill off the last of the destroyers. The more Barracudas can come out and just start cleaning up all of this Navy and its production. Here in the middle, I really like this play out from Dingy. He's transported over a T3 engineer, and he has just built up a bunch of SAMs in a forward location, so that way Nexus has to worry about that. I'm sure Nexus has scouted it. Yes, he has. He sends out a few ASF, but they're going to fly right over the SAMs, and it won't matter. And the torpedo bombers coming out from Dingy going to really negate a lot of this power that Nexus has built up in the Navy. The Barracuda is still going to be useful over here, doing constant attritional damage until the torpedo bombers lock onto them. The ASF numbers, yet again, they're getting close to parity again. As Dingy stops producing ASF and throws everything into torpedo bombers, it's this ebb and flow of giving up a bunch of ASF when you lose a fight for attacking units. And then you have to win another air fight later on. We have Corsairs stockpiling for Nexus. He's keeping them in the backhand, in his back pocket. Wants to kill off a T2 Naval HQ again if he can, but has to spot it before he can do that. Naval battles continuing to take place. These players getting up to very high economies. We might start seeing somebody go for standoff technology very soon. But until then, we're going to just see all of these torpedo bombers coming in and wreaking havoc. You see all of the frigates firing up at them. You see the occasional cruiser. Torpedo bombers shooing away the Navy of Nexus. Nexus showing up with some ASF, but you can only really go for torpedo bombers that overstep their bounds, as he can't afford another air fight. Doesn't want to lose an air fight yet again. Needs to build up his ASF count to outmatch that of Dingy. He is still behind on mass by quite a bit, although overall reclaim has now evened up, both sides getting quite a bit of it. But with these Navy battles, that's where the real reclaim is going to come in. This is the reclaim field that both sides have to fight for. Neither side can give this up. This alone, what we see on screen, this is 7,000 mass. Enough for multiple T3 mexes. And the cruisers and destroyers coming out for Nexus really going to take a huge win in this naval fight. all of these frigates just running in, but there's destroyers sitting in the back, and there's still enough frigates for Nexus to just tank this. And Nexus comes in, gets a beautiful attack onto some of those torpedo bombers, caught the ASF sleeping out from Dingy and killed off about half of that wing with a very quick dart in, diving with those ASF. The ASF play beautiful out of both sides. It's like a chess match, making these minute movements, making these small adjustments in how they're approaching things. As a couple of strat bombers come in and they're going to go for a power generator or two, and they're going to get the air grid of Nexus, and oh no, it's a disaster. Nexus is going to have to throw everything into rebuilding that. These strat bombers have come in and just dealt devastating damage out for Dingy, who is just constantly on the harassment. A bunch of Corsairs now over here to the southern side of the map trying to get some damage done, and they will get some. Gonna kill off most of the structures on this island. But in comes the ASF wave to put an end to their mischievous acts. Over here to the east, the Navy is still going good for Nexus, but it's not enough. I don't feel, especially with losing that air grid. Now Nexus even in a harder position as far as air is concerned. He's gonna rebuild the air grid as quick as possible, but it's gonna be difficult. And now with the naval engagement going the way it has, Nexus, as long as he's not getting assailed by too many torpedo bombers, should just win any naval fight over here on this northern side. That's a lot of engineers now out. There's a lot of engineers now getting into this reclaim field for Nexus, who is behind on reclaim, surprisingly. I guess there was a huge amount of reclaim right here. Yeah, there's 12,000 right here. And there's 18,000 here, so we're going to have to see exactly who comes out on top. It could be like a delayed thing. But right now, Dingy just looking strong. He's looked strong all game. He's really made Nexus struggle here, which is not what we were expecting to see out of the former world champion. I don't remember if at this time he was the reigning world champion or if that was Tagada. But he is one of the top contenders, and Dingy, a relatively new contender. I mean, he's been in Legend of the Stars top 8 before, of course, but has relatively struggled to get into those semi-final spots, and has really just come out and played a blinder of a game against Nexus right now, who is continuing to try and recover. He's been behind economically for so long. Dingy, I'm honestly surprised we don't see a nuke or some form of Novax or Duke going up. Guess he doesn't want to invest all of that mass while also having to deal with a possible Navy loss. The one bright spot right now for Nexus is that this Navy is going swimmingly, pun intended. And Nexus gonna slowly kill off these factories, trying to get engineers to reclaim this reclaim field over here, saying, nope, that's mine, thank you very much. But Dingy remaining ahead on reclaim numbers. Another strat bomber coming out, trying to kill off T3 mechs. Is not really gonna get, I don't think it'll get another bomb off, so it won't kill off that T3 mechs, which means once he gets an engineer out here, he can also just reclaim that 1,000 mass right there. Will be very juicy. And Nexus, now his air grid has been restored, but that little bit of time gave a lot of time for Dingy to continue his air efforts, and right now we're looking at over 130 ASF for Dingy compared to 136. There's more ASF for Nexus, surprisingly. It looked like he had less. So Nexus fighting tooth and claw to get air control. He just wants to be able to protect his Navy, has all of these Salems which can be sent onto land, is starting to get economic damage done for the first time in a while, other than just repeatedly bombing this with Corsairs. and is trying to fight through the choke point. And Neptune's in the choke point, going to stop that from happening, but can always bring some of these Salems around and go for this outcropping of 3 T3 mexes would be big. But also has to worry about the torpedo bombers as frigates struggling to make their way through this canal right here. That is a lot of assistance for a T1 factory. I'm guessing that's going to go T2 or maybe even T3. I'm just curious what the reasoning behind all that is. A few ASFs dispatched on their own to go deal with these torpedo bombers. Doesn't want to commit too many ASF, doesn't want a big air fight, but does want to deal with the torpedo bombers and the T1 bombers. Is going to get a lot of kills here. The T1 bomber is not really a threat. The frigates will deal with those themselves. These SAMs in the middle just taking their toll. 3 kills, 10 kills, 2 kills, 3 kills. All of them getting a few kills, some of which even getting veterancy. As over here to the east, tons of T1 bombers still going after this Navy. These T1 bombers, they die and they do leave reclaims, so there's going to be a lot of engineers over here for Nexus reclaiming. Overall numbers, Nexus has caught up a little bit. In the reclaim totals, but still massively behind. Nearing 100,000 total mass behind his opposition. And hasn't even been more effective with his units than his opponent. Now has an anti-nuke. It's being heavily assisted. Did he see something I didn't? There is a nuke launcher finished up for Dingy. Maybe this has been here for a while. I just didn't see it due to all of the engineers on top of it. And that nuke launcher getting dangerously close to finishing. It's up around 80%. The anti-nuke up to about 50%. Nexus throwing everything behind this. Needs to protect himself against that nuke threat. As the wave of T1 scouts comes in, you have to think that Nexus is worried. If a nuke was launched right now, I don't think he could load in time, but he's getting closer and closer to being able to do just that. Does he have mass? Not quite yet. Strategic launch detected. And oh no, I don't know if Nexus can load his anti-nuke in time. Needs to pause all the factories, needs to make sure he's not stalling mass, and needs to throw everything onto this. Because this is gonna be dangerous. In comes that nuke, passing the halfway mark. The anti-nuke up to 95% and going higher. But I don't know if it's going to be enough. It's going to be a race against the clock right now for Nexus. 99% is coming in. And the anti-nuke gets stopped at 99%. Oh, the anti-nuke stops it. Oh, that was a nail-biting moment. And that Stone Age are going to be a heavy investment that was just all a wash for Dingy. Will be able to build more nukes, of course, but that is not going to mean too much in the near future. As long as he doesn't... Oh, I mean, I don't know. That second nuke's building really quick. But I think the anti-nuke will slowly catch up and does still have quite a bit of assistance. As over here to the east, bunches of Barracudas now out. Gonna be able to deal quite a bit of damage to any of these frigates coming past. But there's a lot of engineers here. Would love to see some of these frigates come in and aggressively deny the engineers for Nexus. Meanwhile, over here to the northeast, a bunch of T1 bombers coming out as Salems walk onto land trying to kill off these T3 mexes. They're still sitting relatively healthy, and they're going to get ranks of veterancy if they kill off these T3 mexes. Very expensive structures, of course. But out comes a wave of broadswords, so these Salems definitely living on borrowed time as of the moment. Can they get enough shells in the air to kill off that T3 mechs is the question. First destroyer goes down in a matter of seconds. Second gonna follow soon. A few ASF dispatched for Nexus to try and deal with this, but decides it's not worth throwing away the ASF, that the Salems are a lost cause. Nexus now throwing up shielding. All those broadswords going to be able to turn their attention and their ire towards this navy. And both sides sitting on very, very large air forces. 236 versus 177. Nexus should still be in the driver's seat as far as the air is concerned, but may have to fight over these SAMs. And these SAMs really just a thorn in the side of Nexus. Does have a battleship out now, which he could use to snipe them off. That might just be what's happening. As a bunch of governors now showing up here on this western side of the map to kill off, well, pretty much anything they can. At least 6 mexes in total now going to go down for Nexus. As the broadswords come in. The broadswords, they're going to take a lot of damage from the tridents, but they're gonna kill off a lot more tridents than they lose broadswords. Gonna be a lot of reclaim here in a couple of seconds. Dingy nearing 20,000 reclaim ahead of Nexus. Just yet again trying to find his footing, trying to find a way to knock Nexus out of this, but Nexus being a relatively resilient foe. Most players would have just crumbled at this point, but Nexus is built different. Second nuke is loaded. Is the anti-nuke loaded? Oh yeah, it is. That nuke could go anywhere, really. Could try and take out the Navy or the naval production. He knows that the naval production cannot be protected by that anti-nuke. These brave engineers waltzing diligently to their death. A frigate coming in to join them in solidarity. As we're looking at a bunch of battleships coming out onto the map. We don't really have any battleship focus coming out from Dingy. Maybe this area is impassable for T3 units. I mean, it doesn't look like it would be, but I'm unsure. Maybe these Neptune can't actually make their way across. All of these engineers dying to try and get that one little bit of reclaim, that bomber up on that hill. Leaving more reclaim than... Actually, do they leave reclaim? They oh yeah, but they're picking it right back up. Strategic launch detected. Is this one also going for the main base? What is it going for? It's going right here. I don't believe that is protected by the anti-nuke, but it may be. Maybe it is. We'll have to see. We'll just watch it for now. And get a few T3 mexes if they're lucky. You can see the nuke, I think, flying over right there. And there comes the shadow. And, yep, gonna land. Kills off one T3 mechs. Not really worth it for the cost of a nuke, honestly. I can't remember the exact cost of a missile. Can I see it here somewhere? is it listed in-game? I don't believe it is. Well, darn. That nuke not really getting any value. Would have been better if it caught out a bunch of the ASF, but the ASF weren't there. And an air fight looking like it's about to kick off, as a ton of strap bombers over here to the east for Nexus. We're going to have to go to split screen. The strap bombers coming in. They have to be going for the air grid. Turn this off, as over here to the left side of your screen, we see broadswords coming in to attack. A huge air fight most likely going to kick off, and Nexus will want to take this air fight pretty much immediately. Yeah, you want this air fight. You're about to kill off the air grid. You win this air fight regardless, as long as you kill off the strap bombers out from Dingy, and he did manage to get those strap bombers. You can see the strap bombers coming in for Nexus over here on the right hand side of your screen. Gonna be able to kill off a ton of these UEF power generators, and in turn cause a chain reaction. Second wave of bombs coming out from those. Huge air fight taking place. I think Nexus is losing it, but he lost it, and in return he killed off the entirety of his opponent's air grid. And that's gonna be a disaster for Espy, and a miracle for Nexus, who even managed to kill off the nuke launcher and the anti-nuke. I wonder if he realized he killed off the anti-nuke. Where is the wreck of it? Well, I guess its wreck got destroyed, but there was an anti-nuke somewhere on this side of the base. And now Nexus may realize that and immediately starts building his nuke launcher. The question is, how long does it take Dingy to realize he lost his anti-nuke? It might take him a second, as his first priority will most likely be, I need my air grid again. And up here to the north, we have battleships galore for Nexus. It looks as though he wants to try and push through this choke, but he's managed to kill off a lot of these SAM sites, which were causing him so much grief, stopping him from taking maybe advantageous air fights if they didn't exist. Bunch of cruisers down here to the south just going to be left to their devices. Nexus not really caring about them. And Nexus about to finish up that nuke launcher. Meanwhile, to the east, air grid reconstruction has begun, but it's going to take a little while. The ASF number, I believe for the moment, Dingy's going to be in the lead at 202, but that is momentary. As we said, all of these air factories paused. Nexus not feeling the need to press the fact that you got that advantage, and Nexus showing up with a ton of Barracudas. And there's just not really anything here to deal with them. There's no Coopers. There's no T1 subs. Nothing here shoots back. And the torpedo's gonna slowly but surely kill off a lot of this. A few strap bombers out for Dingy. The nuke launcher is done. Still gonna be heavily assisted. Nexus can probably afford to turn on some of these air factories yet again. We'll have to see. Gonna go for a few more power generators. I'm thinking he's probably thinking he can't really afford it because of this. Only 5,000 plus power, and each of these is gonna take over 1,000 of power. And over here to the east, we have ourselves strap bombers trying to get some damage done. There's T1 subs now coming out from Dingy, but the damage kind of feels like it's been done if these units can start forcing their way through the choke. And more Barracudas coming out. Nexus realizing that Dingy just didn't have a way to really deal with mass Barracuda. And he's getting a lot of value from it. You can see all of these Barracuda getting veterancy. They're going to be forced back now that there's a bunch of T1 subs out in the water. And And they do run away. I believe they outrange the T1 subs, so they should be able to run away and kill off all the subs if they pursue. And more Barracudas coming out. Would love to see them go over here and just target down all the cruisers. Overall reclaim numbers now. Nexus in the lead. And the air grid for Dingy has completed. He's got his anti-nuke up. It's about at 30%. How's his eco looking? He's looking good. He can't even really spend all of the mass he's making. Nexus. But Nexus's nuke launcher is dangerously close to finishing its nuke compared to where that SMD is. The SMD does build faster, but it doesn't have as much assistance. It's gonna be another nail-biting moment. As here in the middle, we have ourselves a lot of Barracudas still just dealing a lot of damage over here. And it seems as though Dingy, for the first time this game, a little bit on the back foot after those strat snipes. Onto his air grid. Losing those critical structures, the nuke launcher and the anti-nuke has put him in a bit of a rough position. A bug has been started. I think that was just to spend mass. He was probably worried that he wasn't going to be able to. Stops, so that way the nuke doesn't slow down on loading. That nuke getting up to about 99%. And we're going to go ahead and track its progress as it flies across the screen this time. Nuke has finished and is immediately going to launch.
Strategic launch detected.
And in comes the nuke. Will Dingy load his anti in time? Will he be able to pull off what Nexus did mere minutes ago? We'll find out. And where is the nuke specifically targeted if it lands? Anti-nuke very close to loading. Maybe it will. Oh! Anti-nuke! No! It lands right in the anti-nuke silo. 99% Dingy. Losing the race of the orange bars. And man, that is gonna be a painful one. You have to remember these players are in the middle of a best of 5. This game in particular can take a huge mental toll on their futures in this matchup and in the tournament as a whole. And right now, Dingy, at the hour and 1 minute mark, is looking like he may have just been bested. I'm not sure he can recover. Does still have T3 air HQ, still has a lot of T3 air, but he's lost Navy due to this Barracuda playout from Nexus, which was masterful. Thinking, just heads up thinking, looking at his enemy's Navy, deciding that the man can't deal with a mass Barracuda, and he hit it long enough. He showed up with a lot of Barracudas. He didn't just throw 1 or 2 and stream them in. He built a lot of them and then sit them in. It was a thought out strategy and it really worked well. You can see the frigate count almost non-existent for Dingy at the moment. He's trying to chase down these Barracudas with T1 subs, but he's unable to. A Soul Ripper has been completed and more are gonna come, as I think Nexus has officially taken the air advantage again, up to 180 versus 198. I mean, he takes the air advantage if the Soul Ripper gets targeted. And now the T3 Naval HQ for Dingy pretty much forfeit as the Barracudas come out and focus it. Or maybe not. Barracudas have very low DPS, so it might take them a while, but there's going to be more Barracudas, I'm sure. And there's also going to be battleships trying to get their damage done. Doesn't seem as though T3 ships can make it through this pass. Overall economies, though, Dingy is still ahead. But how is he going to manage the fact that his opponent's building air experimentals? And also, half of his ASF now are out of fuel. And the Soul Ripper just going to fly into all of these ASF. May just die due to some lazy micro out of Nexus. Which, who can blame him when you're this long into a game? Played at the highest level. Both these players having high APM. And both of them really straining their knowledge of the game. Straining their ability to manage everything going on. Very common for players to get brain fried when these games pass that 60-minute mark. And in honesty, it starts happening around the 40-50 minute mark when you slow down. You stop replacing mexes because you're just not thinking about it. There's mexes with engineers right next to him for Nexus, and he's just not doing it anymore. And I'm sure there's some for... There's also some over here for Dingy. He could get these... wait, no, none of these mexes are dead. I'm going crazy. But overall, game has somewhat stagnated. Let's go ahead and just speed it up a little bit. There's a few strat bombers kicking around for Dingy. I don't think they're really going to get too much done. Another Soul Ripper completed with 2 Soul Rippers. Does Nexus feel comfortable moving out? Another nuke launched. Going to be going for the power grid, and there's just no anti. Dingy, I think, may have resigned himself to losing this game. He's been using these camera locations. This one directly onto Nexus's comm. Or maybe that's the anti-nuke. And also, when we go to Dingy, he's been doing another really cool strat, doing this. I didn't look at that nuke because it wasn't that important. But that was whenever he did the edge nuking earlier. He marked exactly where the edge of the nuke range was, anti-nuke range was. Soul Rippers over here. Strat Bombers fly in and immediately die. And I think that Dingy is just going to send everything forward and let this game end the way it's going to end. Sends all of his navy out into the other side of the pond, losing most of it. Trying to fight off Salems with Lobos on land. Still sitting on a very strong economy in any other game, but now Nexus has surpassed him. And in come all of the ASF. And there's 4 nuke subs down here. Oh my word, I didn't even notice it. Strategic launch detected. Oh, but there's 5 anti-nukes loaded for Nexus. 1, 2, 3, 4... And with that, the game is assuredly over. It's all over but the singing now. Nexus and Dingy have had an epic battle here today. The Soul Ripper's gonna come in. Dingy sitting in the water. It's really just a question of how long does it take to find that commander. Did he notice that blip? As the Soul Rippers come in, one of them's going to go down to Sam's. The other one most likely will as well. Torpedo bombers coming out. Did he find the commander? I think he may have. Dingy not willing to control K. But the commander's been spotted out. The torpedo bombers are coming in. Dingy's running for the land, but he's not going to find safety in time. GG. Well played to these 2 amazingly high-level players. Thank you to the patrons and channel members who support this channel monetarily. It really helps me. I really appreciate that support. If you want to support but aren't interested in the channel membership or Patreon, you can always make a one-time donation through Super Thanks, which is a heart kind of dollar sign symbol. It says thanks underneath this video. If you want to make a one-time donation, that is the best way to help the channel out. If you want to support in that way, you all are beautiful. I'll see you in the next one. This is Willow, signing off.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, baby, you'll get sick of being the